What's up? What's up? What's up, guys? Matt Crane at I am Matt Crane across the board on all social media channels, and welcome to Millennial Moguls. You know, millennials are the most diverse and yet still the most confused talk about generation in the United States today. Now, I know there's going to be a ton of people that are watching this across the country, internationally, going to be listening on podcast. But at the end of the day, what's really important is that millennials need to do a better job of helping millennials. So, but I'm not here by myself. I got my man, Frank Salas at Talented Mr. Salas 1 is my co-host. What's up, my man, Frank?
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Frank Salas. I go by the name The Talented Mr. Salas, and you are now rocking with the best two millennials in the game right now. My boy, Mr. Matt Crane and Frank Salas. Guys, we put on a crazy show for you guys. This is our first episode. It's actually July 3rd, 2016, and it's for the spirit of Independence Day here in America. I've got my USA shirt on here, representing my favorite country in the freaking world, baby, America #1.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And, Frank and I have really been kind of we've really been going back and forth. And as we watch the marketplace, as we watch all these businesses, entrepreneurs, folks that are riding the 9-to-5 wave, what I've started to really understand and see more and more and more is that, there's a lot of baby boomers that are becoming millennial experts. There's a lot of there's a lot of my dads out there writing books on how to communicate with millennials and how to market to millennials. And yet my dad still has a hard time figuring out why I'm an entrepreneur. And so what they really wanted me to break down is, why is there so many millennials that aren't writing books about millennials? Why are there so many millennials that aren't creating shows and podcasts and interviews and television shows and movies about millennials? At the end of the day, guys, my dad needed to teach me how to become a man. I need to teach me how to be a millennial in this society and in this marketplace, especially if I want to talk about business. And so, Frank, you're a millennial, my man. And, talk to me about some of your experiences. I mean, are you kind of experiencing some of the same things, seeing so many people that are outside of our generational demographic that are trying to tell you how you need to be and talk and operate and create market shares?
Absolutely. So I maybe have one of the most unique experiences in the entire planet when it comes to being a millennial. I dropped out of school when I was 20 years old to start my first business. And I've been going to networking events, happy hours before I could even drink, legally, and meet with these people that have been in business for 20, 30, 40 years. And when I was using stuff like social media in 2008, they were so against it. They were like, no, people don't want to do business online. People want to connect in person. And I had to convince them that you're absolutely right, but there's now another step there, and you have to make that online connection first. And back in those times, people didn't understand that. So I got fed up of trying to educate these, people who were my elders. And of course, I was brought up to respect because I'm a respectful young man. But at the same time, as somebody who knows my self-worth and my value to the place, I respect their opinion, but I completely disagree. And I had to go down my own path. So here I am 8 years later, 14 companies later. And every single one of my companies that I've ever had, I've growth hacked by using social media, online marketing, and all that stuff does is get me to the old school business faster. The more new school business tactics that I use, it gets me quicker to the handshake. It gets me quicker to the phone call, the belly to belly. But now, because I am excelling at that old school tactic and I can leverage the new school tactics, I'm unstoppable. I can start any business. And I've got 7 companies right now. And again, like I mentioned, 14 companies in the past. So you're totally correct with that.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm a new school gentleman with old school tactics, and I create new school business with old school tactics. So, guys, once again, just a quick intro for myself, Matt Crane at I am Matt Crane across the board on all social media channels. I am a business development coach, trainer, mentor, a true business development architect, and I'm an entrepreneurial growth success leader. And I am one of the leading voices in the millennial movement. Where I really stand in here is that, my grandparents were major parts of my life, as far as teaching and learning and having a lot of examples. My dad spent a lot of time on the road traveling. He was a sales rep, and guys, quite frankly, I was the only boy in my entire family. So, I learned from cats that were, the pillars of our entire economy, right? Like went to war, created boundaries, created marketplaces. And one thing that I have really learned and something that has taught me is that millennials are cut from the old school cloth. The problem is that we're still leaning to people who are outside of our generation, and we're looking for them to validate us. We're looking for them to put us on that pedestal. It's almost as if we still want our parents to say, you're doing a great job, yet we want to do something completely different from them. So let me break something down for you guys really quickly. And so you can understand why this show is very important and what the message is really all about. So when World War II ended, right, all those soldiers came home. So all those wives that were lonely, that were taking care of the home, right? What happened is that all of a sudden 1 million new babies were born in America. 1 million, which caused what? It caused schools that needed to be built, hospitals that needed to be built, right? Educational foundations, businesses, infrastructure, roads. So the backbone, right, of the infrastructural part of the economy was built from the baby boomers, which is what? They completely broke the mold of what everybody thought was the norm, right? They went against the entire grain. But let me tell you what happened because of that. There was an entire generation of my grandparents that completely got left out. Nobody created a product that was marketable for them. Nobody created loan concepts that were really meant for them. Nobody created jobs that they thought they could really get. That's why a lot of them were tradesmen or homemakers. That's all they were told. Television shows were not created for them. Commercials were not created for them. Okay, so indirectly, right, what happened was that the baby boomers, they did something different. They challenged status quo, right? Think about cigarettes. Cigarettes didn't become a taboo until all the baby boomers were born, right? And they started rolling them up into papers and putting them behind their ear, right? But it became commercialized, right? And so what I find fascinating is that they didn't lean to mom and dad for advice. They didn't lean to mom and dad to try to elevate them and say, oh, man, great job. Yeah. We really do need to build that school. Or we really do need to build that hospital. And so, Frank, I just find it comical at times that the millennials are getting called lazy. They're getting called entitled. They're getting called coddled or babied. And yet all we're doing is taking the information superhighway with www. And looking to build the new infrastructure of the economy. What's your take on that?
I 100% agree. When we first started this whole series, this is our first series. So, it's called Millennial Moguls. And I like that term because we have such an opportunity in front of us. You talked about infrastructure in our lifetime. That episode is called Episode 1, Last and First of a Generation. In our lifetime, we were the last kids to play outside. And we were the first kids to get online. So this whole marketplace is really just, manipulated by us, if you will. We have such a strong influence on it, and it's designed and catered specifically to us. We come from the generation of, in the early 90s, late 80s, we had cable. And if we didn't want to watch what was on the 4 or 5 public, nationwide stations, we could turn on cable. We could go on this. We can go on that. We could go to the movies, or we could go to Blockbuster and get a tape, and then get a DVD, and then get a Blu-ray. Fast forward to today. Now we got Netflix. We got iTunes. We got this. I don't even have a TV. I haven't had a TV for, almost a decade now. I go to a bar to watch a sports game. I don't even have a TV. Now I'm able to stream that starting next year. I think Twitter's going to be streaming on Periscope with the NFL or something like that when it comes to football games. So, I really feel like everything you said is completely true. And And I'm not lazy. I know you're not lazy. Like I have 7 companies. I've been busting my ass off since 2008, since I was 20 years old, and even before then, when I was in college, guess what? In our lifetime, college was more expensive. Back in the 40s, 50s, how much was college? $8 grand, $6 grand, $4 grand. Yeah. Inflation and this and that, but still it was affordable. Now, if you go to school, a semester is 32 grand. When you go to a public school per year, and what's the sense in that? You're going to go to school for 4 years, be in debt 120 to 150 grand, get a job, maybe qualify for 40 to 60 grand. I saw that coming and I was like, nah, that's not me. I need to find my own path. And I realized that there was so much technology available at our fingertips. And back in 2008, the iPhone barely came out. The iPhone was barely getting popular. Smartphones were able to go to websites. So for me, I realized, hey, there's something big coming here, and I'm going to just follow this. I don't know what it is, but I know it's going to be big, and it's changing the way the world communicates. So I'm going to follow down that. So like you said, the information superhighway is just that. It's an information superhighway. Nobody taught me how to be a businessman. I just learned. And the benefit and the reason we started the show is back then when I was 20 years old, I didn't have anybody to look up to. I didn't have a talented Mr. Salas. I didn't have a Matt Crane saying, hey, buddy, it's possible. These things can do it. I just had like my faith. Like if I work hard enough, this thing is going to be successful. So that's really, my take on that particular issue, Mr. Crane.
Yeah. And I think too, what millennials really get a bad rap for is that, we demand, we demand good paying jobs, and I don't feel that that's wrong at all. And here's why. Because I live in a day and age where I'm watching people become millionaires overnight. I'm seeing billionaires become extra billionaires. I'm seeing companies become unicorns, and I feel that it's something that I shouldn't be too proud to say, hey, this is what I bring to the table. If my value is, if you value me as much as I value what I'm going to bring to you, then let's meet and let's put our money where our mouth is. And I think so many times that companies who were primarily ran by baby boomers, or those that were handed down companies and corporations for baby boomers, are so disconnected with that concept because they're used to having full control. They're used to having maximum paydays, right? That, they are too concerned with controlling the interest of their money and not controlling the interest of the money that we could be making for them. So what happens? We say, you know what? And excuse my language here, ladies and gentlemen, but F a 9 to 5, I'll go out and create my own economical infrastructure. And here's what happens. Now your mom and dad start looking at you going, oh, well, that's possible. That's possible. Well, now they get pissed off at you, because you've gone against everything that they've ever wanted from you. That whole conversation of, hey, I don't want you to make the mistakes I made. Well, that's why I'm not doing it, right? That's why I'm not going and working and building somebody else's pipeline. I'm going to build my own. And you know what? If they want to buy it from me, peeps this. That's called free enterprise. I'll take all the pipeline that I've built. I'll put a value base around it, and I'll say, here you go. If you want it, then hey, you cut me a check. If not, I'm going to keep eating in that back pocket, because that's the American economy. Now, what happens there? Now that's where millennials get called entitled. Oh, well, you think you need to get paid $15 an hour. I haven't seen one millennial be the leader of a $15 an hour job. You know who I've seen be the leader of a $15 an hour job? All these baby boomers out here who have now realized that they're 30 years behind everybody else. But because millennials have stepped into the game and are creating the technology that is necessary, not the brick and mortar, right? McDonald's is going to say, yeah, we'll pay you $15 an hour. Oh, but you know what? We're going to go buy a machine that can do that for you. And so, I think it's just very important that we also understand this, guys. Millennial values are just as strong, if not stronger, than that of their baby boomer parents. 81% of millennials donated money, goods, or services last year. 81%. And this is one of the cheapest generations in the entire world, right? Because there's over 1 trillion, let me rephrase that, $1 trillion worth of student loan debt, which is debt that we've incurred and we've accrued because that's what we were told was going to create the American dream for us. And why were we told that? because our parents' generation built the colleges that we have to go keep in business. So whether we really want to believe it or not, we have to understand that you have to think outside of the status quo. Why are commercials telling you to go to college? Because they were built. They were built by people who are your parents. They were built by people running our country, running our economic foundation. And yet every single day, something's happening that's changing the way the world does business. Millennials are a driving force behind that. So, let's talk about values, Frank, because you come from a completely different way of doing things, value-based system. And, how important are values to you? And where do you see values playing a role in the way that you economically do business?
That's a great point. And, I completely agree. Millennials are just as strong, if not stronger. And I would like to add maybe even more tolerant and open and accepting. Like right now, we're about to put transgender as a mandation for all new businesses that go up there. Like if a guy is a guy or a girl is a girl or whatever they are, like I genuinely, it literally means absolutely nothing to me. But my baby boomer grandpa, man, this dude's upset. Well, why do I got to do that? And why do I got to pay for this? I was like, yo, that's just how it is, man. This is how the world is. There's gay marriage now. I truly don't care what it is that you want to do. And if somebody wants to pierce their lip, get a tattoo, have a glittered beard like they have glittered beards up in Seattle. I mean, it's not for me. I can't grow a beard. And even if I could, I wouldn't put glitter in it, but I don't care. I'm very open. I'm accepting. I'd say, hey, that's a really unique thing. I haven't seen a glitter beard before. That's really awesome. I wouldn't sit there and spend 20 minutes talking about how I ought to tie this guy down and shave it and this and that. I feel like baby boomers and people from that generation, because they didn't have a smartphone, because they didn't have a TV to show them what it's like in Australia right now, what it's like in South Africa, what it's like in Spain, what it's like in South America, what it's like in Canada, or even in California, Texas, Florida, because they were so hyper focused and localized, and they only interacted with the people around them, and they were told, and not only told, but brainwashed by mass marketers, by 1-800 numbers, by commercials, infomercials, magazines, radio commercials that were nonstop. I don't even listen to the radio. I can't tell you the last time I listened to the radio. I've always had, CDs, MP3s, iPods, podcasts, watching YouTube videos. That's what I listen to. I don't even have a car. Speaking about, millennials don't want that much. I don't have a car right now. I use Uber to go everywhere. I mean, I don't have a house right now that I own. I use Airbnb. I don't need much. I could move to another country right now, literally next week, and say, all right, cool. Where am I going to live? How am I going to get around? I truly don't care. I have a PayPal account. I'm good to go. Put me anywhere in the world. I'm still connected with my businesses. I'm still connected with whatever. And I'm able to experience more cultures. I'm able to convey all of the great old messages from the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and just really show out there. And you're talking about service. Absolutely. I can't tell you how much more popular social entrepreneurism has become over the last, 10 years or last decade or so, to the turn of the century. There's more companies donating more money, more time, more initiatives. Now that's part of people's recruitment strategy when they're trying to get talent is, hey, if you join up with us, we match your 401k, we do all this, you get benefits, and we give, like Tom's, we'll give some shoes to somebody else on the other side of the world. Nobody was doing that in 1970. Nobody was doing that in 1980. Nobody was even doing that in 1990. This is a new concept. So that's my thoughts on, values and things like that. I want to bump it to you, Matt, and say, millennials, and talk about the entitlement, because every person that I do business with, and I've been doing business with businessmen and women, and see, let me break that down. A baby boomer wouldn't say that. A baby boomer would say businessman. But I say businessman and woman because I've been out in the world and I know that there's boss chicks and there's boss bros out there and they're doing the damn thing. Shout out to all my boss chicks. What up, girls? They're out there representing and they're making waves. And that's the millennial mindset. That's the kind of stuff that we do to really keep an open thing. It's an evil level playing field. Women just got eligible for the draft. What up? You know, we haven't had a draft in America, but guess what? They are now eligible for the draft. Talk about, you know, progressive and values. Everything's an even playing field now. And that. So I want to bounce it back to you and talk about this entitlement thing. I've been in business since I was 20 years old. I'm 28 now. And when I would meet other businessmen and women, they would always say, or try to negotiate one like little thing. They'd always try to get one up on me because I was a millennial. And if I try to negotiate back, it was like, oh, well, you're entitled. And who are you? And who do you think you are? I was like, yo, I'm a badass bro who started a business when I was young as hell. And I put the work in. I need this. I got the value. Sign that, you know? So talk about the entitlement part. What do you think about the entitlement factor of millennials?
Well, you know, I definitely want to, before we hit that, I definitely want to welcome everyone that's coming into our live viewing audience, for everyone that's listening out there on our podcast and going to watch this live around the world. We'll have this streaming across 6 to 7 different continents. And, you know, here's the deal. We're not challenging baby boomers as a whole, because you know what? There's a ton of baby boomers that I enjoy talking with every single day. Some are some of my greatest and biggest mentors. But as a whole, there's a complete disconnect with the way they created business and the way we're looking at create business. Because here's the deal. Millennials would rather see a more profitable life than they would a more profitable business. You know, I would rather put more deposits in my life account than I would ever be able to withdraw from my bank account, because I personally feel that if I'm doing that very same thing, my bank account is going to be sitting on stacks. And so that's where, when you start talking about entitlement, is that it's not that I feel like the world should be given to me, but I feel like the world should want to appreciate the fact that I want to work smarter, not harder. Hey man, if I can use a power drill instead of a hammer, then that's not entitled. That's just me not being a dumbass, right? Now, that's not me knocking the dude that created the hammer. That's not me knocking my dad and my granddad who got calluses and got forearms for days because that's what they used. It's me showing them that they didn't raise an idiot, right? You know, hey, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I was a sports guy. Call me I wasn't a meathead. I'm a very educated guy, for the record. And I've been challenged as a meathead before, and went ahead and told those individuals they were the weakest link goodbye when they tried to challenge me on facts. But I knew my place. My place wasn't under a car, right? My place wasn't framing houses, right? It just wasn't me. So instead of me trying to please a generation of people that thought that would make me who I am, what I did was I used my own tools, right? Which was my mind and my heart, right? And all those different things. And from that process, that's where the entitlement comes into play, because, you know, 84% of millennials, when you start talking about entitlement, 84% of millennials believe that helping to make the world, the business, their life a more positive place is more important than getting professional recognition. That's where some entitlement definitions come into play. 92% believe that success is measured more than by profit. Okay, 92%, right? And we live in the highest inflation of any generation in the entire world, right? You don't believe me? For every dollar I spend, I'm giving 10 cents of it away, right? Not to mention that 80% of every dollar that I spend goes to an entire different country, right? It's called market share. There's countries that have invested in my generational success at an 80% level. And yet you want to call me entitled. That's where I challenge, because here's the deal. My values are rooted in this. I'm not always going to make what people call the standard decisions, but I always try to operate under the standard of living in the way that I want to see my family be able to survive, the way that I want to see them be able to have the freedom of me, right? So do I feel that I'm entitled to a lot of money? Yeah, I do. And I believe that I'm entitled to that because I'll put up the work ethic that it takes to get there with anybody on planet Earth. I'll put up the dedication to the game up against anybody on planet Earth, right? So I think more people need to have an entitled concept of the way they think about doing things. I'm entitled when I write my schedule because I want to see all of it happen. I'm entitled to the way that I create my daily structure because I want to see all of it happen. right? I'm entitled to the relationships that I create because I want to see them be profitable and fruitful. Okay. You say entitled, I say entitled, but in reality, I'm just being real. Right. So here's the other thing that boggles my mind. Dude, there's 80 million millennials right now in the marketplace. And by the year 2025, we're going to own 75% of the job market. What most people need to appreciate is that we ain't figured that out yet. Because if we figure that out, night to anybody, right? Because 80 million strong, and then and the light switch goes off, and the next thing you know, we realize that by the year 2025, 75% of the jobs are going to be controlled by who? By us. And we're called $1 trillion generation. You know why? Because we generate $1 trillion in market value, because that's how much buying power we have. You want to know why our economy looks to be as good as it is right now? Because we have that kind of buying power in the market. So imagine if you're a boomer, or imagine if you're another generation and that goes away. You know what's going to happen to your property taxes? Through the roof. You know what's going to happen to your health care? Through the roof. Right? And so, you know, Frank, it's funny because we're from completely two different backgrounds, completely two different ethnicities, right? Completely two different ways of doing business, but yet we have a unique partnership. And it goes to my major point when it comes to millennials and why I think this show, and why we really call this show a mogul. See, notice how we haven't once said about how much money we make and about how many jobs we create and how many businesses we have and all the cool people we meet every single day and all the places we're going and speaking and the fact that my man just came back from an entire different country, right? I mean, we don't talk about those things, right? Because to me, a mogul is somebody who lives, breathes, and eats wanting to be more than what they are right now, envisioning something greater, right? The blueprint that I want to create is a blueprint that I hand to my children, and then they just hand on down to theirs, and then they just hand on down to theirs, right? I call that a lifetime banknote. See, if I create the right blueprint, it's a banknote that just cruises on down. So, you know, guys, it's very important that you see that whether you're a millennial or not, get to know us, hug on us a little bit, love on us a little bit, you know, maybe tweet your boy every now and then at I am Matt Crane. You feel me? Maybe tweet my boy Frank Salas at Talented Mr. Salas 1, because we're creating the new jobs for the future, right? Every time a brand tweets out something, they're tweeting it because they want us to retweet it. They want us to give them analytical data. And, you know, that's where people miss. So, you know, Frank, Texas, where you are, you know, that's the wild, wild west, man. You know, it's a big place. There's a lot of things going on. So what kind of you know, what's the movement like in Texas?
Yeah. So actually, I'm very blessed to be living in Austin, Texas. I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm actually from Fort Worth. And I live in Austin, Texas right now, about 60% of the year. The rest of the year, I travel the world and I, you know, run my businesses and I do all these things. We'll get into that as the show progresses. But here in Austin, the vibe is bunch of millennials out here, and everybody is very open, very progressive. There's like an entire like gay district of like, you know, it's LBGQ, whatever that whole catchphrase is, you know, lesbians, transsexuals, all that stuff. Everyone's real cool. But the technology here is insane. We have the first self-driving car outside of California here in Austin, Texas. So you were talking about your place isn't underneath a car. You know what? We're not even going to be driving cars. Our place isn't even going to be wasting our time driving the steering wheel. I haven't driven in 8 months. You know, I got rid of my car and I just made the choice to be like, you know, in the back seat on my phone, running my business, being a mogul. So I don't have to spend 30 minutes when I go to my office. I don't have to spend another 45 minutes in traffic. I don't have to do these things. I don't have to look for parking. Parking's horrible. So the vibe here is very open, very progressive, and always open to new technologies. We have this thing called South by Southwest, and every March for the entire month, There's a bunch of new technology, emerging technologies, stuff like virtual reality, which is going to be huge pretty soon. Like in maybe 6 to 18 months, you and I are going to be doing this show with virtual reality goggles on, and we'll be like having our own studio, and we could design whatever we wanted. I mean, that's literally coming within 5 years or less. You know, that's like our reality. But when I tell that to a baby boomer, they're like, oh, you watch too much movies and this and that. I'm like, no, you just don't understand that in the last 5 years, phones get twice as fast, triple times as fast, 10 times as fast, 100 times as fast, bigger batteries, smaller phones, higher resolutions. Look at the new TVs that come out. Remember, like 3 years ago, it was all about like the 1080p HD. Now it's like 4K HD, and I don't even know what's going on. Now they have like virtual reality. So it's always progressing. And the vibe here in Austin is just like, what's next? What's new? What's coming? There's an excitement. There's like, yes, push that forward. Yes, we want it. And things like GoFundMe, those campaigns where it's like, hey, I have like the Solar City. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, for those of you guys who don't know what Solar City is, solar roadways. That's where instead of having asphalt, you're going to have solar panels be your roadways, and there's so many benefits on that. But people like ourselves, millennials, see the value in that, and some baby boomers, of course, and Gen X and so on and so forth. But that's mostly funded by millennials because we see gas is bad. In 1970, there was a gas crisis. It's gonna happen again. We don't want to pollute the earth. Global warming is a thing. I don't care how you believe. The facts are there. I'm in Austin, Texas right now. It's July 3rd. It's freaking 107 degrees here, man. It's freaking hot. And I've only been on this earth for 3 decades almost, and it's freaking hot. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter. I've been all over the world. I see what's going on in the rainforest. I see what's going on in those places. I see the difference. And most people are, who are baby boomers in America specifically, when they go home, when they do their 9 to 5, or if they're retired, what are they doing? They're watching CNN. They're watching all MSNBC. And what are those things perpetuating? Drama, propaganda, just stuff to get them worried, stuff to get them riled up. When I go home and see my dad, he goes off work, hardworking guy, goes off work, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, but he watches TV and eats, food, and he's just watching that stuff. And he's like, hey, Frank, do you know about this? I'm like, no, honestly, I don't care about that. And maybe that makes me ignorant. Maybe it doesn't. I'm just so focused on my goals and my path and where I'm headed that means nothing to me. The whole, crisis in 2008 of the housing stuff. I started my business in 2008, like the month that it started, and banks weren't lending, and I was like, I don't need a bank. Like I'm already in debt. Like I went to school for 3 years. I'm already $100,000 in the hole. How much worse could it be? Let me. When I come to the game, I had to get myself out of the hole because of that. And lots of millennials here in Austin, Texas. To answer your question about the vibe, they are in the same position and they're quitting their jobs, and everybody talks about, oh, I got a side hustle now. Everyone has a job, but they blog, but they do video stuff, but they have a weekend business and they have an online business. They're starting to understand online marketing. And 3 years ago, if you told somebody you were in online marketing, it was kind of like you'd get one of these reactions like, oh, really? Is that what you do? That's kind of weird. But now when they're seeing residual incomes come in and they're like, hey, how do you do that? Can you give me more? And 6 months ago when Facebook Live was just getting out of beta and was going to, the masses, and you too were one of the first people that were Facebooking and pulling our phone out in public and doing this and talking to people that weren't around. People were like, you're crazy. I don't get it. But guess what everybody's doing right now? They're on Snapchat. They're on Facebook Live, because that's where things are headed, man. So that's what the vibe is. The vibe is in Austin, Texas specifically. It's very open, but Austin, Texas is a really secluded part of Texas. Texas is, conservative. It's one of the most conservative states in the South, south of the Mason-Dixon line. And I know we have a global audience, so I want to maybe make this a little bit broader. If you are a millennial right now, you're more likely to invest in new technology. Like if I give a millennial $100,000 and I say, here you go, do you want to put this into stocks, or do you want to put this into a startup and maybe get a unicorn? Split it 10 ways and give 10 different companies $10,000. You might have a better shot of making that unicorn status. So that's really where what the vibe is like over here. I want to bounce it back to you, Matt, and then talk to you about the opportunity. You and I live in such a time. One of my favorite books is The Outliers. If The Outliers was written today, or not even today, 20 years from now, if The Outlier was written 20 years from now, they would talk about this time when stuff like live stream was just hitting, and there was very few people who were using these platforms to get their message out, because we all have radios right now. Imagine if Oprah in 1980, when she first got started, what if she didn't have to deal with the news? What if she had to deal with networks, sponsors? What if she just had her own platform and just put the work in? She was doing it anyways. She went on TV 5 times a day, every single day for 25 years. What if she did that for herself? Like, if you realize she eventually got to her own network, she eventually got to her own radio show, but that's because she had to work her way up there. We have that opportunity now. So talk to us about the opportunity, Mr. Matt Crane.
So this is one of my favorite books by probably one of the greatest figures in my entire life, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, called Profiles in Courage. Now, why did I show you guys that book? Won a Pulitzer Prize because it was light years ahead of what anyone in the political arena was thinking. And he wrote it when he was a junior senator. And he actually wrote the majority of the book when he was laying in a hospital after his PT Cruiser got in the wreck in Japan. And he basically had to float in water to keep from getting killed by the enemy. He saved all of his people. And so he basically wrote a lot of this and then recaptured in this book. But the reason why I say that is because he saw the opportunity very early on to change the mold of the way the political structure was done. Right. And he did that at a time when it was not popular, at a time when no one was thinking the way he was thinking. It helped that his father was one of the most powerful human beings on planet Earth. However, it was still in an arena that was challenging, but yet he saw the opportunity to start creating something that was different, which ultimately led him to becoming the president of the United States, which only being president for 2 years ultimately led him to being known as one of the greatest presidents of all time. And yet he was only in office for 2 years. Right? And he dealt with the largest enemy at the time of the United States of America, based on a lot of the book, right, in Russia. And that's the type of opportunity that millennials have when it comes to bridging the gap with baby boomers, and it comes to bridging the gap with the way the world sees things. Like, for instance, when you think about what America is really built on, it's built on freedom, independence, right? Freedom of choice and decision. But in reality, the reason why America is a superpower is because we know how to make money. We know how to create money from nothing. If you don't believe me, look at our debt ceiling, right? We're the poorest country in the world, and yet we got so much going on. It's unreal, because countries see us because they know we can create money. So what millennials have to understand about the opportunity is that we're the largest generation of creators of money in the entire world. Right? When China looks at America, they see the millennial buyers that by the year 2018 will pass baby boomers in spending power at $3.4 trillion, which is more than half of our national deficit right now. That's the opportunity. But I'm going to have to get on my millennials for a minute too. You guys have to understand that we have an obligation to bridge the communication gap with the very baby boomers that we're fighting against. We have an obligation to carry ourselves as professionals, right? I don't want to get on live stream and see what you're wearing the night before. I don't want to get on live stream and see how many drinks you're pouring up. I don't want to get on live stream and see your intimate moments. And y'all know what I mean by intimate. All right. I don't want to see you young ladies out there who think you need to put some makeup on and wear a tight skin shirt just so somebody can give you a viewer count. I don't want to see you young men out there talking like you're a thug when you know you're not a thug. Right? Carry yourself like a professional. Right? Millennials are professionals. Right? We are the new wave of the way you're going to do new business. But the reason why we want to create opportunities for other people is because we know that it's built on the backbone of old school tactics, that our forefathers, which was my parents and your parents, Frank, we wouldn't have the opportunities that we have had they not been willing to die for those moments, had they not been willing to go to those factories and work in those brick and mortar places. So when I see millennials, right, the first thing I want to do is say this: I'm not going to preach or teach to any millennial if I'm not willing to reach for them first. Now, y'all need to go ahead and take that down, put that a quote in your book. Make sure y'all got a Facebook meme about it, because never preach or teach to anyone if you're not willing to reach for them first. Right? And so it really goes back to this. What are you willing to do? All right. If you want to make $1 million, cool. But you better be willing to work for $2 million. If you want to make $6 million, cool. But you better be willing to work for $12 million, because that's the type of effort that it's going to take. But opportunities, come on, man. Hey, let's talk about it. You live in Dallas, Texas. This is what I love about creating relationships and partnerships, guys, is that my man lives in Dallas, Texas, where it's no thing but a chicken wing to be a millennial and create a business, right? I live in rural America in the Bible Belt in the state of Tennessee, right? And I'm an anomaly. I'm a millennial that moved back to rural America, where there was no jobs, where there was no Starbucks, where there was no Publix, right? Where there was no PayPal, you could pay for things in the store, right? Where there really is no Wi-Fi outside of the city limits. And I'm fighting against people every single day whose own children moved out of this community because there was nothing there. But see, now as a millennial, there's an opportunity for me to stand up to that and let those baby boomers know that if you want to run the governments, fine. If you want to make the decisions, fine. But you better be willing to pay for it. And the only way they're going to be able to understand that is you carry yourself as a professional. You have those conversations. So let me break this down for you guys. If you want to enhance as a millennial, if you want to enhance rural America, right, there's opportunities there. Right? There's 10 Frank Salases that are living in Nashville right now. Frank's one of the most talented people I've ever been around. But if I want to compete with Frank and I go to Nashville, Tennessee to do so, there's 10 of them living next door to me. But because of the opportunities of technology, I can live in Giles County, Tennessee and be the guy. Right? But I have to be committed to being a pro. So when I get on Periscope, when I get on Facebook Live, when I'm doing all these videos, man, and then when I go to the grocery store, you ought to see the chuckles. You ought to see the people that are saying, Matt, what the hell are you doing? And I'll say, I'm creating business in the new wave. So when you're ready to cut that check, let me know. Right? I've launched 3 businesses this year solely on social media. I didn't go after my warm market. I didn't create a belly-to-belly movement because I understood the need to build that proof first. And so I'll tell you right now, Frank, there's more opportunities now than there's ever been. Why? Let's talk about the big 3. And guys, I talk about things in 3, 5s, and 8s. And unfortunately, 3 is my favorite number. That's why you just deal with it. 5 is the most confused millennial, blaming millennials for millennials' problems. Come to my man, Matt Crane. I promise you. Okay, cool. Evan Taxi, man. You know, hey, I do believe that solving problems is the way to create ultimate wealth in this country. But I appreciate the big shout out, my friend. Thank you. But there's 3 big reasons and 3 big ways that you can do that. Number 1, technology, right? There's more abundance of information than there's ever been. Guys, don't fool yourself and think that all these influencers haven't www.google.com the answer, right? Don't think that they haven't www. Whatever they need you to figure out.com and created the ebook. Don't fool yourself that they're not leveraging the technology that's available, right? Number 2, partnerships. Why millennials are really creating the opportunities that they're creating, why they're going to surpass the spending power of the boomers by the year 2018 is because they would rather create meaningful relationships over profitable ownerships. Now, woo, man, I'm killing y'all today. Meaningful relationships over profitable ownerships, right? Because to be an owner, it's to be singular. Right? Millennials don't necessarily want to be single. That's why the term solopreneur almost is disintegrated. Millennials killed that. Okay? So create meaningful relationships. And then number 3 are authenticity. Authenticity. I firmly believe Even the millennials that I called out about showcasing their nightly talents, right? The millennials that I called out about, using the platforms in a wrong way. Hey, you know what? They're authentic, right? They're needing someone to guide them, right? I would rather someone call me after this show and say, "Hey, Matt, you called out the boomers pretty heavy there, but yet I could appreciate you telling, you being who you are." I'll tell you this story really quick, Frank, on authenticity and why that's important is because I stood in front of a Rotary Club one day when we were launching a young professionals group, and I had one gentleman that I knew was going to give me some hard time because he's always called me brash and arrogant and cocky and all those things, which is funny because, at 18, everything I'm saying right now is cocky and arrogant. At 30, right. It's determination, right? You guys got a great head on his shoulders. You know what I mean? But yet it's not changed. However, this one gentleman was giving me such a hard time. And he basically called me out and says, "Well, Matt, why do you think that it's going to be the young professionals that's going to really make a change in our education system?" And I asked every single human being in the room, right? I was the youngest person by half at minimal in that room. And I said, by a show of hands, how many of you have children that are still in the school system? Crickets. I said, all right, how many of you are still paying a student loan off? Crickets. Okay. How many of you have children that still live in this community whose kids go to our school system? Crickets. And I said, thank you, sir. Have a good day. And I walked off. Right. And here's why. That's the thinking that's out there, guys. And when you challenge that thinking, when you have a guy like Frank, right, that has a little bit darker complexion, right, that has a little bit different draw to his voice, right, he'll step in certain arenas and people will immediately try to intimidate him. They will immediately try to downplay who he is until they see that he's real. Then they're going to start noticing he's educated. Then they're going to start getting to that deeper platform of he's created 14 businesses. And then all of a sudden, they want to create those partnerships. But what happened is, Frank's done moved on. Right? That's where the entitlement comes from. That's where millennials get seen as lazy. It's because we don't wait too long. Right? The average attention span of a human being is 1 minute and 30 seconds or 2 minutes. So why would I wait 5 minutes for you to make a decision that you're going to make in 2 minutes? See, that's the difference in millennials and all the other generation. But yet they call us lazy. Yeah, we might go make a ton of mistakes and have to come back and, we put a tire on it, forget to tile the lug nuts up. Hey, that's part of it. Right? But you ain't waiting around for us to put a tire on. So, Frank, that's the opportunity thing, man, is there. But what we have to do, what millennials must do, is you have to challenge everything. But you have to do it in a manner that's not disrespectful. You need to do it in a manner that's not one-sided. You need to understand that I believe this. I believe that the more opportunities that I have to challenge status quo, the more opportunities that I'll be able to prove that there's certain ways to not do it the standard way. Right? I see my man Tony Stone's here, right? So let's take Tony Stone for an instance. Tony and I have a conversation, and if I challenge something that he may think is normal, and I do it in a way that's one-sided and short-sighted, right, then I'm not really challenging anything. I'm more of an opinionated person at that point. But if I'm willing to challenge certain things that maybe he thinks on or that he sees, and then yet we're able to create an understanding, then now there's going to be more opportunities for me to learn from him and him to learn from me, which is ultimately going to do what? Probably create more opportunities for me to make money, and he'd do the same. So, you said something about investors too, Frank, that I thought was very, very important. Millennials are one of the most investing generations that there is. And so, man, I tell you, this show's done got off to a rocket start on episode 1, man. So guys, I will say this. I hope everybody's enjoying the show. My name is Matt Crane, I am Matt Crane across the board on all social media channels. I see so many folks that are coming into our live viewing audience. We're going to be streaming this on 7 different continents. We're going to be having events. We're going to be creating masterminds. We're going to be having live trainings and seminars across the country. Feedback. This is just the beginning. So
I want to get some feedback from you.
Huh?
It's a little weird.
Am I good now?
Maybe it's just me.
I done blown the mic up.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. As my refresh. Boy Matt Crane gets refreshed. Let's see. Test 1, 2, 3. Is this me? Yeah, I think it might be me. We both might need to go. Is there? Hold on. Test. I'm gonna refresh as well.
All right, guys, this is Matt Crane at I Am Matt Crane across the board on all social media channels. A business development trainer, coach, mentor, known in the marketplace as a true business development architect. I'm also an entrepreneur, growth, success leader, Power of Great podcast host on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. And you have been live with your boy on Millennial Moguls, episode number 1 with my man, growth hacking expert, social media savant, Frank Salas at Talented Mr. Salas 1. And guys, this is the first of many, many shows that we're streaming live across 7 different continents. We're going to be having videos, training, so many different things. And, you know, I really want to say thank you to each and every one of you for chiming in and participating in our very first episode. And there's so much more to come. And here is the deal. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a millennial in order to want to learn and understand more about how millennials operate, create, and develop things. As millennials, we should also look to want to interact with other people. We should want to be able to create relationships with anyone and everyone that will help us to continue to make this generation stronger and better. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you today. My man, Frank Salas, I appreciate you being the co-host, the co-pilot, if you will. And is there any last parting words you have for the audience and the listeners for episode number 1, my friend?
I do. I have a feeling this is going to be huge. I have a feeling this is going to be great. Matt and I have been really, on our separate path, building our businesses in this social media business industry. We've been at it for about a year now, and we've, got several different things. I could go on and on about our accomplishments in just the last 12 months, but I'm not, because for us, it's always what's next. That already happened. I'm not curious about what happened last month. I'm not curious about what happened 2 months ago, and I'm challenging every one of my millennials, baby boomers, Generation X, retirees, newborns, everybody. I only want to encourage you to simply be the best versions of yourselves every single day. If you can do that, I promise you, it'll always work out. I promise you guys. Frank out.
Remember this, guys, Millennial Moguls, your current situation is not your defining moment. If you're willing to do what's necessary to create success that's unnecessary at times, then you truly will understand the value of creating relationships, partnerships, and truly exploring the opportunities of great that are sitting there. Guys, it's been my pleasure. Episode number 1, Millennial Moguls, and we will see you next time.